Okay, great. So thank you, first of all, everyone, for your patience. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Greetings from New York. I am Peter Sereni, Communications and KM Specialist at UNDOCO. We're all sort of working remotely today because New York has been hit by a pretty big snowstorm. So let me, as a moderator, let me sort of frame the presentations as well as the discussion that we'll have today. Today's webinar focuses on the My World 2030 platform, which is a tool for public engagement around the Sustainable Development Goals. The presentation, which was, and we're still hoping for Anand Kantaria of the SDG Action Campaign to make it online. He's experiencing some technical difficulties, and so we hope that he'll be online. What you're looking at on screen is the first slide of his presentation, which he managed to send us. And what I hope what he will speak to, and we have Kristen, also from the SDG Action Campaign, who is online and can actually speak to this a bit. There are three things that I want to say in connection with the My World 2030 platform. It's a product of the SDG Action Campaign, which is, and it builds off of the very successful My World 2015 project, and it is designed to help bring citizens' perceptions and data into the process of monitoring progress on the SDGs, and to help build dialogue between citizens and decision makers. The focus of this webinar will be to outline progress made with the My World Community Edition, a platform of 3 simple SDG engagement questions, which works both online and offline for use in national consultations. And also the My World Scientific Edition, which is basically brings together a set of almost 100 SDG related questions that have been developed and field tested by leading market research agencies, civil society organizations, and academia for use in developing comprehensive and representative studies at the country level. Let me just ask, we also have a second presenter today who has managed to get online. That's Dilek Osler of Paragon Partnerships. Paragon Partnerships is a global network of market research agencies, corporations, NGOs, academics, and UN member states working together to bring the services of the market research industry into the measurement and implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The main objective of Paragon Partnerships is to democratize market research data and people's insights to create a better world. Let me also just flag that we also have Gina Lucarelli, team leader of the Knowledge and Innovation team at UNDOCO online, and she might also come in with her perspective and insights.
Peter, just while you've mentioned me, we do have Mitchell Toomey, the director of the SDG Action Campaign, online now. So I think probably we can kick it over to him to start us off once you're ready with the introduction.
Okay, great. I'm almost there. I just wanted to flag for people's attention that if you have any questions at any point during this webinar, please put your questions in the question box, and we will field them during the course of the Q&A. And also, this webinar is being recorded, so if you miss any of this, we will send out the webinar to registrants as well as through the Coordination Practice Network. So without further ado, with apologies for any delay and also for any technical glitches that we've had. Let me just pass the mic to Mitchell Toomey, a director of the SDG Action Campaign. Mitchell, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank God for the technology. So, yes, thank you very much, Peter, and everyone in attendance for the participation today. And thanks for that introduction, Peter. My world, I was kind of switching my phone over, and I didn't hear all of Peter's comments, but the program is based on the successful implementation of this during the post-2015 process, wherein about 10 million people were engaged in the design of the SDGs by the means of a simple questionnaire. But it was obviously the questions are the heart of it, but the whole process is really kind of the message. So I guess you could look at the way people are getting engaged, the numbers of people that are getting engaged, and also how the engagement is being actually used, and what this data represents, and bringing dignity to the voice of the people, and so on. Just a quick background: the SDG Action Campaign, as we call ourselves now, is the second phase of campaigning around major development goals. We were the Millennium Campaign up until the end of 2015. And the Secretary General renewed the kind of the mandate for the campaign to ensure that the kind of work that was done over the course of the MDGs of getting people engaged and rallying civil society networks was combined with the kind of innovations and new techniques that were used during the post-2015 process and built into a standing kind of support implementation architecture for people doing the goals. So if we go to the next slide, not sure who's running the deck right now.
I've got the slide control. So just
great. So,
yeah.
So quickly, in my world, 2015, as I mentioned, this was a project that really commenced around the time that the whole global conversation was happening, when many amazing things were done by lots of different country teams and so on. But the My World instrument was made available and used widely by a lot of partners. And it basically asked, what's most important for you and your family. It was a single question, but had 16 set options that people could choose from, and they were derived from kind of a consultative process, and they did match closely to what the goals ended up being, but they weren't exactly the same. But it gave people a chance to say, not what should the big issues of the day be, or what should the UN tackle, but what's most important for me and my family, and it becomes very personal and at a human scale. So if you go down to the next slide, the process was kicked off by the Secretary General as part of his overall kind of invitation for people to participate in the design of this SDG process. It's important to, as we've learned in campaigning, if you want people to contribute, if you want to hear their voice, you have to be very clear as to why, as to how their voice will influence affairs, and who's asking, and who's listening. And so, we've set it up, and we're doing the same this time around with the most senior officials, most senior relevant officials, to ask people to participate. That becomes enormously powerful in mobilizing volunteers and all the other pieces of the puzzle that are needed to do an exercise like this. So if we can move on to the next slide. Again, the high-level panel and all the people who were involved in the decision-making at the kind of at the high end, that you might say, of the SDGs, were really all anxious to hear, from their constituents. And so each of them, in different ways, you can see the many of the faces here that were involved in calling for this information. They all, in separate ways, use social media and other things to encourage people to participate, and that's a routine that we as the campaign organized. We got the highest level officials we could, and then made those announcements and so on, and that helped the local teams and the decentralized teams point to those calls to action, say, look, whatever the relevant and most valuable senior official or kind of a elected official in this case would be, they could use those testimonials to encourage participation. If we go down to the next slide.
Yes, 1 second.
So from the beginning, it was designed, with a couple of things in mind. Yes, data collection was obviously the core part of this. So, what are people thinking? Let's make sure we get that data very scientifically. Let's, bring it together, whether it be via paper ballots and, in the reality of the world, while we did a lot of online and mobile collection, the vast majority of the 10 million participants participated via paper ballot, and that was with volunteers going into communities and asking and writing down the answers and bringing them back and tabulating them. Rather labor intensive, but it was really a great way to engage a lot of youth volunteers and others in this exercise. Gave a great sense of local ownership for it, and ultimately, that process of not only going out and doing the advocacy and the kind of the interviews and the kind of bringing up the topics and spurring that conversation, but the resulting data was brought back and created very powerful evidence base for the negotiators and for those working on the goals. And it was presented in kind of charts and graphs and things that they could really start to see some trends and patterns. It wasn't just, oh, people are advocating for these goals, we should listen. It was actually saying, isn't it interesting to see the different demographic trends, people in these countries looking after these goals, and so on. And so that was a very important kind of legitimizing factor in this advocacy. So bringing kind of the data revolution to advocacy was actually seen in real life on the My World project. So if we continue to the next screen.
Yes. And I think we have Anand online as well now.
All right, Anand. Welcome. Do you want to take over and talk about some of the more specific country examples? No, I'll keep going if we can. So there were a number of great. Oh, are you there?
Sorry, Mitchell. I am here. If you want me to.
Yeah, great. Why don't you just to add a little variety to the voices? Thank you. Over
Fantastic,
to you.
And thank you all so much for bearing with me. I don't know what happened through multiple devices getting online. So yeah, as Mitchell said, a huge country-level engagement in My World, and what we've done here is just outline some of the sort of highlights that we had in the 194 countries that engaged with My World 2015. So as you see on the screen, the top left, that's a picture of 3,000 youth volunteers sat in Mexico City, mobilized by one of our partners in Juve, who were able to collect 1.6 million votes in a matter of 3 months. So a massive sort of engagement both for these volunteer enumerators, but also obviously the citizens and communities they were able to touch. The bottom right is a picture of a number of volunteers from the National Youth Service Corps in Nigeria, where for the first time we were able to work with the government in Nigeria and the National Youth Service Corps to carry a fully representative study out in 36 countries around Nigeria. Sorry, 36 counties and districts around Nigeria. So a fully representative study, and again they were able to mobilize over 1 million vote participations in just under a month. Next slide, please. As we move forward, we used a variety of techniques to engage people in the My World project. So one of them was the use of mobile phones, particularly in conflict countries. So for example, in Yemen, we set up a call-in number using IVR technology, and we were able to gather 400,000 responses, working with the UN country office, who really did a phenomenal 360-degree marketing campaign in Yemen to promote the numbers, so that we had billboards in the center of the city, newspaper articles, banner adverts on sort of online news portals. So it really was a full engagement and really gathered a massive momentum of traffic to the call-in number in Yemen. And then, of course, we used some of the more standard techniques of a global day of online action, where we were able to really work as a one UN system and garner the support of a number of the UN Goodwill ambassadors, UNICEF ambassadors, UNDP ambassadors, etc., and get 25 million social media impressions and convert that to 250,000 new votes on this sort of huge day of action that we curated with all of our partners. Next slide, please. So that's an overview of some of the country examples. We also just wanted to show you some of the ways that we actually used the data. So as Mitchell mentioned before, we obviously fed the data to the high-level panel for post-2015, the open working group, regular briefings to the PGA office and member states. But we also worked with our civil society partners to do things like school youth debates. So we do things like balloon debates, and this picture is, I think, of a group in South Africa where these young people kind of picked which goal that they had voted for, and they kind of argued the case for why that was so critical for their country or their locality, and it really sparked conversation. And this was a big objective of My World, was really to start the conversation. It wasn't a definitive sort of study, but it really sparked a lot of conversation at a local level. The bottom right picture is a handover event. So we worked with a lot of civil society groups to produce a sort of People's Voices report for the data they've collected for their country, and then sort of hand it over to different officials, be they mayoral, ministerial, or heads of state. Next slide, please. We also sort of worked hard to make sure that as many people could participate in as many languages. So we went through a mammoth exercise, and many of you on the call probably helped us in this exercise, so thank you. We were able to get the survey into 40 languages, including indigenous languages, and make sure that that the survey was in multiple dialects, so that as many people could participate as possible. And then the bottom right picture is a picture of the Junior Chamber International, who are one of our core partners, but really one of 1,000 civil society, youth, faith community, and private sector partners that helped us take the survey out. So that's a sort of whistle-stop tour of how we arrived to where we've arrived to with the birth of My World 2030. So we can have the next slide, please. So due to the success of the initiative, a number of interested parties, both citizens that have participated, and we have almost sort of 400,000 citizens that have left their details to continue staying engaged with this initiative, as well as EOSG and a number of other sort of heads of agencies have asked us to sort of look at how My World 2030 could be very relevant to the Sustainable Development Goals. So we've designed it with a view to sort of help monitor the progress of the SDGs by gathering citizens' perceptions data, help build accountability networks, and create dialogue between citizens and decision makers. Next slide, please. So the way, I mean, this slide sort of just illustrates the journey from My World 2015 to My World 2030. So My World 2015 rather was much more about, was a simple prioritization vehicle for the goals. It was about getting to a huge scale of citizen involvement, working with partners. As we move forward, if we go from today onwards, we look at how the project is much more about localization, is much more focused on implementation questions and building accountability. We're not just focusing on scale, but we've also added a scientific component, which is about representativeness and actually getting higher quality data. And we're looking to engage more and more stakeholders, both in the design of surveys as well as sort of a built-in advocacy component. So as we build the constituency around the goals, that advocacy component is very much ready. And then finally, we're looking to sort of embed this cycle more and more into political processes at all levels. So next slide, please. So My World 2030 is divided into 4 streams. So we have, and we're going to focus on just the left-hand side of this quadrant for this conversation today. So we have a My World Scientific stream, which is essentially a defined component instrument that's been designed to carry out nationally representative studies at a country level, working with either a local academic partner or a market research company. And Dilek will talk more at the end of this call about some of the market research companies that are in the Paragon group, who have been great partners and very supportive. And then the bottom left quadrant speaks to the My World Community Edition, which will give you a preview of today. But essentially 3 simple questions which allow sort of mass scale engagement, both on and offline, sort of as an easy access point to understanding the SDGs. So next slide, please. So here's a quick summary of some of the things that we've done to build out the My World community functionality. So we now have the survey online and ready in 9 languages, and we'll be showing you some screenshots from that survey after this particular slide. We've had already a massive engagement in Mexico once again, where over 500,000 young people have engaged with the My World 2030 community survey. We've also partnered with a youth volunteer group who've carried out a tour of Africa called the Road to Nairobi, where they use these community questions as well as gathering picture and voice stories from individuals about what their immediate needs are and why they care about the goals. We've also worked with the UN country office in Myanmar to sort of customize this platform and add more local sort of breakouts and regional breakouts from people voting, as well as to have it in the local Burmese languages. And we've partnered with a big civil society group in China called YouThink to develop a Chinese app using these questions as well. And finally, we're in sort of conversations with DPI and the GSMA to sort of integrate these questions into the app that's been developed. So that's an overview of the community functionality. And then to turn your attention to the right-hand side of the screen, the My World Scientific component. So we're now ready with a question library which is now expanded. It's almost 100 questions, which have been designed by ourselves at the SDG Action Campaign, working with UNDP, the Overseas Development Institute, and Qatar Republic, a big marketing research agency. We've now field tested these questions in the UK, in Kenya, and in Thailand. So we worked in the slums in Thailand and in Kenya, and sort of went into communities, as well as doing cognitive sort of city-based testing to make sure we got that rural-urban sort of split. And that questionnaire is now ready, and again, we'll show you some examples of the questions later on in the presentation. Some of the questions have already been sort of tested by the government of Morocco in the perception survey that they've done, and we're working with Paragon Partnerships to introduce some of these questions into tracker surveys that are being conducted by the likes of Nielsen and Big Picture and other sort of ongoing trackers of progress. And finally, we're looking to integrate this sort of question library into a series of pilots being done under the banner of We the Peoples, which is a one UN initiative, so a collection of sort of UNICEF, UNDP, WFP, ourselves, and U-Report, and several others who are looking to do some specific pilots around the high-level political forum. So next slide, please. So just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of just show you some of the screenshots of the community survey that's now available at myworld2030.org. So this is the home screen. As I mentioned, there's only 3 questions that we ask. So the first is a very simple awareness question, sort of, are you aware of the SDGs or the global goals? The next question, so next slide, please, ask people which of the following goals are of immediate concern to them and their families, so that we kind of address the issue of timeline in national level implementation. And then the final question, next slide, please. Ask citizens, once they've selected 6 out of the 17, how they would rate the situation on their chosen goals over the last 12 months. So have things got better, stayed the same, or got worse? So as you can see, a very simple, easy access questionnaire, which gives us a sense of awareness of sort of localization, and also perceived progress over time. And this 12-month cycle is very much sort of in line with the indicators that are being monitored through the official processes. Now, this platform at My World 2030, of course, is available online, but it also has a functionality to work offline. So once it's been uploaded once on your smartphone or any sort of tablet, it can then be used in the field to collect as many votes as you would like to. And then as you come back into a Wi-Fi area, you can just hit upload, and all of those votes would be recorded in our system. We're, of course, working on visualizing these votes in a very compelling way, much as we did with My World 2015, and that work is in process and will be led out of our new center in Bonn, which we'll speak about towards the end. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there is we've developed this large question library of 100 questions. They span general questions, which are sort of collecting information on how people around the world are experiencing life in the areas covered by the SDGs. So as we know, sort of we as a system divide the world into goals, etc., but other people are just living their life, and it's sort of designed to sort of ask people questions in language and in headings that they can understand. We then drill down deeper into some of the goals that we believe where there are data gaps and we're lacking some information from other sources. So some examples of the questions can be seen on the right-hand side. For example, we ask a question about infrastructure. So how would you rate the quality of roads inside your town, village, or neighborhood, from excellent to poor? We also ask about health and safety at work. So in the last month, during the course of your work, have you been subjected to any of the following? Sort of verbal abuse, unwanted sexual attention, physical violence. And similarly, we've asked sort of questions around peace, justice, and strong institutions at Goal 16, and questions such as how would you say the political system in how much would you say the political system in your country allows people like you to have a say in what the government does. So really, we've tried to sort of synthesize the language of the targets and indicators into questions where citizens' perceptions would really be the most useful and impactful. And as I say, there's 100 questions now developed, and we should be able to share the link to the whole question library. It's literally hot off the press because we only got the finalized version in yesterday. We should be able to send it, Peter and Gina, through you in the next couple of days in its entirety. Okay, so next slide, please. So we also wanted to just give a quick snapshot on some of the creative ways that once this huge amount of data is gathered, how we sort of tell that story in a way to really build empathy between decision makers and the people that they serve. In My World 2015, we gathered 60 million data points, so we really had to find lots of creative ways to make sure that all of that data was conveyed to decision makers. So if we go to the next slide, we thought about, we've kind of designing creative ways to engage both our partners and storytellers to continue with this exercise. So one of the things that we've done is created a People's Voices Challenge, where partners are sort of challenged to go out and gather not just the most number of votes, but to, in the spirit of leave no one behind, to reach out to the most marginalized communities, to really harness innovation, to come up with the most creative combination of multi-stakeholder groups to achieve their goals. And then we've been running a sort of annual award ceremony at the UN General Assembly in New York, and on the right are some of the pictures of this award ceremony that have happened. And the next phase of this is really to see if country offices or regional bodies would like to run these sorts of People's Voices awards at a country level, to really recognize and encourage and incentivize partners and individuals to engage with this process of data collection around the goals. Next slide, please. We're also continuing with our really successful Humans of My World project, which builds off the very successful Humans of New York project, which was sort of our inspiration for this. And as I mentioned earlier, we've covered off an additional 8 countries in the last year in Africa, but we'd like to do more. This is basically a mechanism where youth volunteers can go out and ask people to take the survey. We then ask people to kind of select which of the goals they're most passionate about, and then we ask them what their story is. and we take a photograph and in some cases a video, and we capture that that story, and we then turn these into exhibitions around the world. And I believe we've now done these exhibitions in about 30 countries, and we've collected voices from about 40 countries now, and you can see some of the spread of countries on this slide. We do have a toolkit available for any countries who are interested in rolling this out, and many of the offices that we speak to often say that they have youth volunteers sort of write to them saying, how can we be involved? This is a fantastic way to sort of give them an assignment which is very contained, but yet really helps tell the story of what's happening at a local level in any given country. And of course, adds a lot of color and interest to reports that we all have to produce much of the time. So next slide, please. So the other thing that, as I mentioned, we collect these stories as well as the data that we have, and combine them in these People's Voices exhibitions, and invite decision makers, parliamentarians, mayors, ministers, to come and actually experience the data that we've collected. So typically we don't just produce reports, but we try and create an interactive experience so that decision makers can really get immersed in the depth of what it is that we've collected. These have been highly successful, and we've had great response from decision makers in this process. I think that the sort of we started off doing these at the UN General Assembly, but again they've spread out all over the world, and we've now done them in over 30 countries. The highlights, I think, was at September 2015, UNGA, when the goals were announced, where we had a huge partnership with Facebook and built a huge tent at the on the compound of UN headquarters in New York, and we really were able to get a lot of world leaders and senior decision makers in to experience the voices and stories of the millions of individuals and people that have participated. So again, this is something that can be very easily rolled out, and we have guidance and a toolkit if a country officer wants to do a People's Voices exhibition with their particular country or locality's data. Okay, next slide, please. Another highly successful and engaging and popular part of our exhibitions are virtual reality films, and great that we have Kristen Gudenkunst on the line from our team, who's sort of leading this project for us. This has been a series of films that have been shot over the last sort of 1.5 years, looking at some of the most pressing issues in development, such as a day in the life of an Ebola survivor, following a refugee camp, looking at clean water issues in India, etc. And so there's now a whole library of these films which can be shown at a national level. And please do contact us if you'd like to sort of organize a screening or integrate these films into the work that you're doing. We're also moving now into augmented reality, and perhaps if anyone has any questions around that, Kristen can help answer that after the presentation. So next slide, please, which is a summary slide. So essentially, in summary, the platform that we've built is really built around this core question library of 100 sort of tested questions around the SDGs, which are then rolled out in different manners. So you can have a light touch sort of community edition of 3 questions, or you can carry out a completely stratified sort of scientific sample working with an academic institution. And the third option, which we haven't talked about in depth in this call, but we're exploring more and more, is how countries can do a bespoke survey based on issues of national concern. So sort of pick out questions from this question library and sort of work with us to create a bespoke survey. A core part of what we do is we're not a data collection agency by any stretch, but we really feel that giving people the dignity of voice in participating in an exercise such as this really helps citizens engage with an agenda which is often inaccessible. And we really push anyone who's sort of rolling out a national edition of My World to make sure that they've embedded into the thinking from the very start what the feedback loop is from the data that they're collecting, and also looked at sort of creative and impactful ways to visualize the data that they're collecting so that you can have the most direct policy impact. So yeah, that's it for me and from us, from the My World side. Just on the next slide, we have some contact details should anyone want to sort of find out more or have any specific questions for us. And yeah, with that, I think I can hand back over to you, Peter, to introduce Dilek. Or I don't know if we want to stop now to field questions. However you want to structure it.
Thank you very much, Anand. This is really great. I think we'll move to Dilek's presentation, but I just wanted to maybe just flag that I think your tool and the work that you have all done, both on the My World 2015 project, and thank you so much, Mitchell, for starting us off. And it's great to have Anand online now finally for his presentation. Yeah, I think this is a great tool to help build dialogue between citizens and decision makers, and also monitor progress on the SDGs. I think just to give people the dignity of voice, and also to help them better connect with an agenda which is, as you say, oftentimes inaccessible to people. So I think this tool is a fantastic step forward, and I'm sure that people at the country level listening to this presentation will want to know sort of how concretely they can connect with this and make use of all the work that you have done, and both on the community edition as well as on the scientific edition of My World platforms. So to move us into, obviously, market research is an important component of this, and we're fortunate to have Dilek Usler online from Paragon Partnerships. I mentioned her at the beginning, but I just wanted to emphasize for those people who have joined after my initial presentation that Paragon Partnerships is a global network of market research agencies and corporations and NGOs working together to bring the services of market research industry into the measurement and implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So yeah, I think without further ado, let me pass the floor to Dilek, and I'm going to make you the presenter. Dilek, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Okay, one moment. Let me just make you the presenter, and you are going to be okay, we see your screen. So
okay.
Please, Dilek.
Great. Hello, everyone. Yeah, again, my name is Dilek Usler, and I'm very happy to be here today. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. I am leading Paragon Partnerships, like Peter said. But before telling you a bit about Paragon, I want to start by thanking Anand and Mitchell for being a great partner and helping us get in touch with the right parties like yourselves, so that more people can make use of our services that we have to offer to help with the SDGs. And I think what we have to offer, it fits very well with and complementary, very, very complementary to what they have been doing through the My World platform. So I hope this will be useful to everybody. So what is Paragon? So Paragon is quite a new organization, only about a year old. And what it is like Peter said, it's a global network of market research agencies, their clients, actually the clients being like big companies like Coca Cola, PepsiCo, or Unilever, the company that I'm actually working for, and NGOs and academics, and of course Anand's team, SDG Action Campaign. We are working together to bring the services and resources of the global market research industry into the measurement and implementation of SDGs. So if you ask what is market research, I just to make sure that we're on a level field here, just to repeat what it is, it's actually the action of gathering information about people's needs and preferences. And private sector makes use of that extensively to get to know their consumers, to understand the market, and make the right choices to launch products, amend their products, even advertising, to make sure that the advertising is capturing the hearts and minds of people and leading them into purchase. So as market, Peter, are you? Would you like to put yourself on mute?
Oh yes, sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Okay. So as market research industry, we already collect a lot of data and insight into people, like I was saying, like, as the private sector, and their lives all around the world. And this is all paid by private companies like Unilever and PepsiCo. And through Paragon, we bring our expertise to use and interpret this data and insights for the measurement of and implementation of SDGs now. And we provide this market research data that is both quantitative and qualitative to answer questions. And the good thing about this is we use our resources and volunteer force to help for these resources. And we currently have 29 partners. Actually, it says 26, but we increased to 29 recently, and we are increasing every day. So in a nutshell, what Paragon is, it's a way to democratize market research data and people insights to create a brighter future for the world. That is our motto. So what are the different ways that Paragon can help with the SDG measurement and implementation? So we not only add questions to our existing surveys that we field every day for the current private companies, which we can open up for anyone to add questions at the end of, but we also dig into the existing market research data, because we have all that existing data from years and years, and when there's a request, we can dig into the existing data to come up with interpretation of that data and provide answers and insights. The other thing we can do is we can start new researches that maybe we can't find the answer to the question in the existing data, and maybe we're not fielding a survey that might be suitable for that specific question. And at that point, we are open to fielding a new research just tailor-made to that specific question to answer that specific SDG question. Let me now talk about how our partnership first came about with Anand's team, Mitchell's team. And actually, I also want to give an example of a study that we did together with them to show how actually Paragon can help. So we realized that in My World 2015 data, Philippines was one of the countries with the highest participation to the survey. They had twice as many people than an average country participating in the survey. So we said, let's understand better. Why have the citizens of Philippines identified education, healthcare, and employment as their top 3 issues that mattered the most in the My World 15? What do they really want from their government under these topics? And what aspects of them were had the most significance to them? So to answer those questions, we used online quantitative research, and then we followed it by web-enabled live connects for qualitative understanding. So we administered 2 consecutive researches to complement each other, which was like a 2-step approach. And on the quantitative part, what did we actually investigate under these? What we investigated was the 3 topics that we know mattered most to the citizens of Philippines, which were healthcare, employment, and education. In the qualitative part, our aim here was to go deeper on those 3 topics that we had in the quant survey and understand in more depth what the citizens of Philippines thought could be done to improve in those areas and the reasons behind. So here we investigated the topics of high cost of healthcare, youth unemployment, and low elementary school participation. I will now go briefly through the details and some of the results of those two studies, just to give you a sense of what can be possible. So in the in the quantitative study, we talked to 842 respondents from different parts of the country, and our sample was quite diverse actually, with respondents from both genders, both urban and rural, different age groups, across different income groups and levels of education. Fits very well with leave no one behind agenda. And we weighted the data afterwards based on the census data so that it's nationally representative as much as possible too. So just to share you with a few of the findings that we saw, for the sake of time, I'll not just go to much detail, but focus on some total level key findings, but certainly can share the subgroup data and the rest of the findings later with anyone interested offline. So this one is about healthcare. If we were to focus on the top 3 points, it is obviously, we can see here that accessibility to healthcare seems to be the most important issue under the healthcare topic, and with almost 1/3 of the people saying it would have big impact on their lives if realized. And they want access to healthcare regardless of how remote the areas they live are or how economically challenged they are, which are represented by the first 2 bars that you see on this chart. And the third priority for them was the skill levels of the healthcare. They want skilled professionals where they would like to make sure that they are getting quality healthcare from skilled personnel. And this is also at similar levels at 26%. So if we were to go to the next slide, which is about job opportunities, here we are seeing that providing permanent employment for income continuity is the dominant issue, with 50% of the people saying it would have a big impact on their lives if tackled. And this is followed by elimination of corruption at similar levels and job opportunities for young people at about 43%. So when we go finally under the topic of education, the key issue at 36% is about ensuring adequate budget for quality education system. And this is followed at almost equal levels by improving children's health issues so that they can attend school regularly. And when we look at this last finding among subgroups, which is not on this slide, but we see interestingly that this is more significant for men than women, and for younger people, and also for people with low socioeconomic levels. And you will see in the next slides that this actually came up also in the qualitative work that followed. Therefore, there seems to be an issue where the government may choose to prioritize, for example, the issue of children's health issues impacting their school attendance. So if we were to go now to the qualitative phase, here what we did is we spent an hour with each with these 8 people from the Philippines and talked to them in depth on their thoughts on some of the issues that their country is facing. This sample was mostly urban skewed because of the internet connectivity thing, but more educated than the ones in the Quant study. But they were still quite diverse in their ages and family status, like 4 millennials, 4 Generation X, 4 with children, 4 without children, so we were able to get a wider perspective. Now, to share a few of the insights that came out of this, and again, for the sake of time, I'm just going to focus on the insights around low elementary school participation in these slides. One of the things that was coming across was how the parents themselves were not educated enough, and they didn't really recognize the true value of the education themselves. And therefore, they didn't try hard enough to educate their own children. They hadn't been educated well enough to understand the importance of education and its impact on their children. So children were in fact the victims of their parents who are not educated to begin with. Of course, this is not to generalize, but this is more talking to the lower part of the country. So we heard from them that there could be a possible government action, for example, about educating the parents to the benefits of educating their children. So maybe local event days and individual barangays talking about the importance of education, etc., etc. So the other thing that we saw, we heard about education was about using alternative venues that are free for public education, like TV, for example. They were saying TV is free. Why don't we use TV to educate? And for example, an open school TV channel that is available outside of working hours instead of using TV mostly for news or advertising and entertainment purposes. And everyone is watching TV all the time. So let's use it to educate public in various topics, from maybe things like nutrition, even to school curriculum, to healthier lifestyles, etc., etc. So TV could be a source that people were saying could be utilized maybe. And then the third insight that we got from this qualitative work was links with education and healthcare issues together. And this is the one that I was referring to previously. The people of the country that we spoke to are saying one way of improving school attendance, which is an issue, is bringing healthcare into the schools. One of the reasons kids cannot attend school regularly is because they get sick and they don't have access to healthcare, and they stay unhealthy longer and cannot attend school. And as they don't attend school day one, they're less likely to attend school the second day, and then even less likely the third day. So this goes on and on. So the issue of access to healthcare also impacts education. And one solution that was brought up was this idea of bringing clinics or medical personnel to schools, either permanently or visiting, maybe once a week, etc., etc. So just to wrap up, this was of course just an example that we did from Philippines, just to show what we can do. This is something we did very proactively, but we can take briefs from you and tailor the research based on your needs so that you can find out information that you need to help the citizens of your country and help shape your policies. So the three ways that you can think about this is the first one, which is, for example, with My World 2030, you now have a portion to get input from your citizens of your country on a more bespoke level. You will have a library of questions like Anand was talking about to choose from, a portion to pick and choose the ones that are relevant for your country. So how can we help here? How we can help here is to open up our already running questionnaires the private sector is running for you to tag along those questions, so that the coverage is country representative and the field work is free. And secondly, what you can do is you can submit questions that are not necessarily in My World library, questions library, and we can include them either in an already running questionnaire, qualitative or quantitative, and that's all pro bono to answer your challenges and questions. Or we can design a new research, like I was saying at the beginning, to help answer those questions. Or we can even see if the answer lies in the existing market research data that we can pull it up and dig into and provide insights. And finally, this can be something longer term, which we can look into putting together local country Paragon chapters who can work closely with you at the local level. For example, where you can work either directly with you or the designated NGOs or scholars, the think tanks that you might refer to us in your countries, which is another option. So in short, we believe we can help bring the citizens' voice into policy making by bringing to the surface what their problems are from their eyes and understanding what would really make a difference to their lives and help you define your agenda going forward. Our contact information is on the screen. Please make a note of it, and make use of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dilek. This is really a very interesting presentation. I'm sure that country teams will gain a lot from this introduction. And I think it's fantastic. You're offering the service on if I understand correctly, on a pro bono basis to the UN. That's correct. Yeah, I think this is to be able to tap into your knowledge and networks and your coverage, and also to avail ourselves of the field work that you can do is really something that I think country teams might be very well interested in tapping into. So I think this is really very very helpful and very very useful for all of us to know more about. Let me. I'm just turning now to the question box. We have a couple of questions that have come in from those online, and let me just say before I turn to the questions whether Gina or Mitchell would like to make any thoughts to frame what has been discussed so far.
Peter, would you like to? Sorry, would you like
This
to take?
is Mitchell.
Sorry, Peter, would you like to stop presenting my screen or?
Well, I think that's, yeah. I can do that. I can switch it back to Anand's final slide if that works for you. Mitchell, did you want to come in here?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Hello, hello? Okay, sorry. I was confused with the mute buttons here. No, I just wanted to once again thank the Paragon Partnership and Delic, and it's been a real eye-opener, frankly, to see how much synergy there is between market research and what is needed in order to really convince politicians and others that things are happening, and you know, not just that awareness is building, but that people are really responding to policy changes and so on. And I think that to do it in a way that's, you know, objective as possible and everything, and using, you know, existing techniques and standards and existing questions, it makes it a lot easier to get started, frankly, than having to go through that policy discussion of what do we ask and to whom do we ask it and so on. So we hope that these things can help you kickstart that. And as kind of a restatement of the SDG Action Campaign's mandate and offer, I won't go too deeply into it, but we do have a mandate to serve you. This is a function that the Secretary General has called for. It's hosted within the UN development system. We have a great funding partnership with the government of Germany as well as some others to make a kind of 24/7 support structure available to you to get these things started. I mean, we can't do them kind of all everywhere, obviously, but we're designing them in kind of a flat pack kind of way so that people can get these things set up with our support and encouragement, and we can match some grants here and there and do those kind of things. But it's really, we've seen it take off, like in my world, with a lot of local interest and local action. And so the whole idea is to make this go as big as possible. So that needs to be done independently. But when we have partners like this and the Paragon Partnership, what our supplementary support to you is to make sure that you know who else is using these kind of things and to give you the right access and so on, but not to kind of be a middleman between this kind of a value. I think that everyone should be going directly, but we want to make sure we know the whole story so that we can tell everybody what's working. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mitchell. That's great. I will now turn our attention to some questions that have been put in the question box. And let me just say, for those online, if you have any questions at this point, please feel free to put them in the question box. The first question I see is from Mumi Mauludi. The question is, the word scientific has been mentioned several times. Would it be possible to get details on issues such as sampling methods used? Maybe I turn this question to Anand or Mitchell for...
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So thank you for your question. Yes, the idea is this instrument has been developed sort of with Kantar, formerly TNS opinion, as a sort of complete scientific study. By way of the sampling methods, etc., they will vary obviously country to country, and that's why we advise that country officers partner with either a sort of market research company at a country level or a academic institution to define the sample size to make sure that it's representative of whichever populations are deemed sort of necessary to sample. But I'm happy to sort of continue that conversation in more detail offline.
Great, thank you, Anand. Thank you, Anand. Let me...
Peter, I just want to come in. There's another question here. You might not be able to see it, because we have this funny thing where our colleague Irada from the RC office in Azerbaijan is actually listed as an organizer of this webinar. It's just a technical glitch. But there is a question from her if you want to take that.
Okay, great. Yes. I
Okay.
see it. I see it. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Irada, let me just read your question. And good morning. Is there any UN or UNDP advocacy guidance and any communication tool for promoting the SDGs at the country level? I think that, you know, what I can mention here is that we have within the context of the new United Nations Development Assistance Framework, guidelines for how to go about implementing them. The Communications and Advocacy Working Group of the UNDG is putting together a guidance on how to go about SDG, how to go about promoting the Sustainable Development Goals at the country level. And this should be available to you shortly, later on in the next couple of months. And I think that also there are tools which are being offered by the Department of Public Information, and I'd be happy to share a link to some of the materials that are on their platform for promoting the Sustainable Development Goals. And yeah, I think that there are, you know, this is to build upon the Communicating as One guidance, which speaks largely to sort of branding and how to build the infrastructure for joint communications at the country level. It speaks a bit to advocacy, but what we are aiming to do is produce a companion piece, as I mentioned, for the UNDAF guidance, which speaks specifically to how to go about advocating and promotion of the SDGs. Gina, would you like to add anything at this point on that?
Well, no, just to say that, you know, I think sometimes we think about communications and advocacy as a one-way flow of information, you know, that we need to make sure everyone knows about these global goals. And I would just like to say, you know, what we've seen here from the SDG Action Campaign and from Paragon, our partners there, is that it's really a two-way street. And actually, these kinds of activities, you know, forums, campaigns, exhibitions, can often be an even better way to communicate and advocate for sustainable development goals than just issuing a report or issuing a press release or doing our sort of traditional communications and advocacy activities. So just to broaden what we think, I think we've heard today about some great tools. It's a two-way street here, and we're trying to get feedback from citizens as much as we are, you know, spreading the word about these goals, with the hope that they hold their governments to account for the promises they made in 2015.
Great. Thank you, Gina. I think that's a really critical point, and it's also a bit reflected in the next question, which is from Borka Jeremic of Serbia. Hi, everyone. Greetings from the RCO in Serbia. As you might have been aware, we've used the Serbia We Want platform in the previous phase. Since this platform is a bit static for further use, I was wondering if we could also adapt it to the Serbian language. So I guess the question is, to what extent can the platforms that were mentioned be localized in local languages? Anand, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. Yeah, great. Thanks for that question. It's a great question. So, as mentioned sort of previously, a lot of our design starts with the country office in mind, and so too with My World 2030, certainly, where sort of we've developed a sort of language, a simple sort of Google document, which basic country officers can take and sort of add in their local language. And then we'd sort of update that to our form. We'd create a form in the Serbian language, and then you'd be able to link directly to that. So that functionality has been built in, certainly to the My World Community Edition. So please do sort of contact us and let us know, and we'd be thrilled to work with you to make that happen. With regards to the broader question library, just because we've just sort of finalized it, the idea is to now go through the same process of sort of mapping it out into an Excel file with every sort of word that needs to be translated, and then work with country officers over time to have that library in as many languages as possible. But certainly for the portal that we've built so far, we can add in additional languages. Over.
Great, thanks, Anand. A question from Linnea von Wagenen. Could you tell us more about the best way to get in touch with you to start up a partnership? Maybe you could just outline it on sort of, I know on the screen we have your contact email. You know, what is the process, and what do people need to think about before engaging you on this issue?
Sure. Actually, so thank you for that, because there is an actually updated email which will probably be better for everyone to contact, because then anyone in the team can pick it up. It's actually info@sdgactioncampaign.org, and Peter, perhaps you can send it round. I don't know if you can paste it into the chat. Unfortunately, I'm still logged in via the phone. But once again, it's info@sdgactioncampaign.org. The process for participating as a My World partner, we have an application form which we will then send you. This is just to help us also coordinate within country, because as you can imagine, sometimes we have sort of 2 or 3 partners. It's not just the UN system who are driving these sorts of projects. So if we have a civil society partner already operating in that country, it allows us to keep track of who's kind of coordinating efforts in any given locality. But the sort of simple questionnaire also encourages country officers to think about the full cycle, from not just obviously the design of the questions, which is critical, but how they're going to be marketed and communicated, and then also how the data is going to be used and embedded into political processes. So there are certain requisites that we have before someone can actually come on board as a My World partner and sort of use that brand. Is that there's certain key tenets of any My World project that needs to be in place. It's not just a case of sort of doing a Survey Monkey or a quick online survey, but we really need to think through the whole cycle of the feedback loop and the communications loop, embedding principles such as leave no one behind, and making sure that whatever we develop is available offline as well as online, etc. So we can send that application form and guidance to any country that's looking to participate with us. And then, as mentioned, with some of the other programs, such as the People's Voices Challenge or the Humans of My World, we have a series of toolkits which we can send you, which will guide you through the specific steps for setting one of those programs up in country. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Anand. This has been really very, very useful and helpful. I put the contact information in the chat box, so send it. I think everyone has it. We have maybe 5 more minutes left before the webinar is scheduled to come to a close. So if you have any questions, colleagues, please put them in the question box.
Peter?
And yes, Mitchell.
This is Mitchell. If I may, while people are pondering that last question, just another angle to this that might be interesting to some country teams. The UNV was a very key partner in the first wave of the My World exercise and the whole post-2015 process, frankly. And perhaps some of you recall having a specialized UNV there just for the duration of that year or so of the consultation. But it was that catalytic role that kind of organized My World activities and other things. And we've been, now that we have this new center in Bonn, and I guess we haven't really articulated that very well, but this center is this freestanding, campaign office, but we're going to collaborate very closely with UNV. And we find that the using the UNV modality is to create like a campaign manager type post or temporary position not only gives you access to talent outside the normal, kind of talent network within the UN, but it also creates it usually pulls from a community that understands volunteering, and then they can go out and start to build kind of a durable network of volunteers to help you do these kind of exercises over time. Because like the My World things and the questionnaires, these are not one-time exercises. These are designed to give you information over time. And in order to do that, you really need a committed network of people who are in it for the marathon, in it for the long haul. And getting that kind of spirit going is really, there is pro bono assistance, and there will always be goodwill available. But you need that durable network of volunteers who feel a sense of ownership. And it's just a quick pitch for working with UNV. We can help set that up, as Anand said. We have the support channel at sdgactioncampaign.org. You can email us. We're going to be setting up all kinds of entry points to make sure you can find us. But we also now have just hired a team. We've got a focal point for each region. They're going to be specialized in supporting country teams within those regions to get what you need and solve your problems, and get these things kickstarted. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. One question from Borka Jeremic, who is actually doing the administration of the My World 2030 platform? Anand, do you want to take that?
Yep. Sure. So yes, as Mitchell said, it would be administered by the SDG Action Campaign out of our new center in Bonn, Germany, which will be a global sort of support center to also facilitate sort of all country demands around campaigning and advocacy. But it'll be administered by us there.
Great. Dilek, are you still online? I just want to give you a moment, if you'd like, to comment or build upon any of the questions that have been asked.
Yes, I'm online. I just want to refer back to Gina's comment about how this is a two-way street. I think that's the kind of the core of what we are actually talking about today, that we need to hear people's voices to be able to implement policies, regulations, or actions for SDGs going forward. That is kind of the core of why we are doing this for the people. So I just want to say that as a close, that hearing people is one of the most important aspects of bringing the SDGs to life.
Fantastic, and that's really, that cuts to the core of why we're all online today, and I think this cuts to the core of the issue in terms of the services which are being offered by the SDG Action Campaign and also by Paragon Partnerships. I think that we have no more questions. No, we have one more, and then I think maybe we'll wrap up since it's 10:30. The last question is from Mumi Maulidi, sorry. Given that My World Survey seeks to capture time series data, is there any guidance on how often the survey should be conducted, annually or every 2 years? Anand, do you want to quickly speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So by way of the community edition, our vision is that it would be collected at an ongoing basis, because obviously it's very difficult to synchronize across 200 odd countries as to collecting data at a particular time. but we are clear about sort of the feedback moments which we drive towards. So the idea is to have a strong body of evidence for each high-level political forum in July, with a particular focus, obviously, on the national volunteering countries for that forum. Then, of course, the UN General Assembly in September. So by way of the community data would be on an ongoing basis, and the visualization that we will build in is a sort of real-time visualization tool. So that data is continuously updated. By way of the scientific nationally representative studies, we're still finalizing and testing, but we anticipate between 2 to 3 years being the cycle that we would advise these studies to be continued. Obviously, they take a lot more time to set up and are a lot more resource intensive, so they cannot be sort of conducted real time or every year. So it's between 2 to 3 years, but we're going to kind of see how it plays out as we roll out in more countries, and then have a more sort of specific guidance note on that. Over.
Thank you very much, Anand. So I think this has really been from my side, and I hope from your side as well, a useful and productive exchange. I would like to just bring the webinar now to a close and say I think these tools and platforms and approaches, the way that they've been presented, really are critical in terms of that two-way street, that two-way communication that Gina referred to earlier, and also Dilek referenced. I think we really need to hear the people's voices on these issues and really to feed them into the responses that are taken at country level, and to work toward achieving this incredibly ambitious agenda. So let me thank Anand of the SDG Action Campaign, as well as, of course, Mitchell for jumping in at the beginning at short notice to kick us off. Really appreciate that, and apologies again for the technical moment that we had at the beginning. Dilek from Paragon Partnerships, thank you very much for your really very insightful presentation and your offer to provide colleagues with services, the services that you spoke to earlier. Also, thanks to Gina for coming in with some key comments on this topic as well. And thanks to you, colleagues in the field. We had about 60 people registered, and about a bit over 30 online now. This webinar is being recorded, and I will send around the link to a recording of the webinar. So if you'd like to refer to it later, all of this content will be available for you. And I also put the contact information for the SDG Action Campaign in the chat box. It is info@sdgactioncampaign.org. And also, I think Dilek shared her contact information in her presentation. So on behalf of UN DOCO, I would just like to thank you all for being online during this webinar, and I wish you a great rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.